Hello, my name is Peregrine. Thank you for 2,000 subscribers. At 50 videos, we're doing good conversion rates there. Let's keep bumping those numbers though. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And let's get into the Q&A. Chef the Buffoon asks, are you happy with the audience you're currently you've cultivated? As a whole, yes. There's certain aspects I wish I could change, but that ultimately comes from the fact that YouTube commenters are often on the younger side, and I understand that maturity comes with age. So I do trust that within due time, some of these people will develop better communication skills and tempers. I, for one, acted like them when I was young, so it's funny to see it from the YouTuber side of things. I have a funny story about that. When I was younger on YouTube, I used to follow a Pokemon YouTuber called Huddlumscrafty. He had a Pokemon X and Y playthrough with his friend Whoopsire, and in one of the videos he was confused about how Tyrogue evolved into like Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, Hitmontop, and that's dependent on EVs, and I called him a retard in the comment for not knowing it, and he got really offended by it and kind of went on a giant rant about it in the next video. And like at the time I felt really kind of hard done on, like scolded by a parent or something kind of thing. And what he said was like, you don't know me. Obviously my friends can say that to me, but you can't say that to me because I don't know you. And like that really reflected on how I comment on things, and you know, it taught me to like behave better online. And it's always kind of stuck in the back of my head about how I leave comments about things, and like just learning the difference between like a parasocial relationship and just being a viewer. So, you know, that's a story for those young watching, and if you are young and watching, I have two things to say to you. One, be careful about how much information you give out online. I've seen some very questionable things in Discords and in my comments. You've got to be careful about that. I've deleted those comments, obviously. And two, it is just the internet. It's not that serious, so you don't have to argue about everything. Some things are just out of your control, so focus on what you can control. You aren't going to be the person that solves racism. You're not going to stop a genocide on the other side of the world. I know it's important to stay educated and like raise awareness for these types of things, but you yourself cannot stop these things, and you need to learn like a line where you don't focus on it anymore and you focus on your own happiness first. Xtar asks, hey Peregrine, what did you think of Queen Maeve from The Boys? I think her arc is very well done, but I'd prefer if she died taking Soldier Boy out as well. Maeve was a good character from the sidelines only. She was a large representation of how different generations handle things. She's kind of a representative of women in the workplace, where women are treated badly in the workplace, how she was, but they didn't speak up about it, which led to the cycle of abuse repeating over and over again. And obviously, like Maeve, you understand why women didn't speak up in the past, but just because you understand why they didn't do it doesn't mean that what they did was right. There's that entire thing where she's like, oh, I can't do anything, I have no power, oh, I'm down in the dumps and I hate everything, and the way she treats Starlight in the first episode, whereas we do have power and we can speak up about these things and change our surroundings. And, you know, similar to Maeve, it's kind of about laziness or worriness. I don't know, it's hard to probably get into without a full video, but people like complaining rather than taking action and improving their lives or the world as a whole. And I think she was a decent representation of that, and I don't know, maybe she should have died. The Boys' writers are not very good at doing unhappy endings. Like, they always like to pussy out at the last second and give a good ending. Except A-Train. A-Train fucking died. Karma asks, what do you think about the current gaming landscape in the last 5 years? Have you noticed that there's nothing good or good enough has come out, or anything original at least, and that people are still playing IPs that are decades old? I think there's definitely points about the lack of new IPs and devs heavily relying on franchises to make safe money. This is definitely a lot more important in TV and film than it is gaming, and the only way that we break this cycle is by not buying from the franchises and supporting new ones, which is usually where the main problem comes from. We are only thinking about shit slop games every day, and we think about them more than we think about genuine standout titles that have come out in the past 5 years. You know, things such as Expedition 33, Neon White, Metal Hellsinger, Dispatch, Peak, Schedule 1, Sip Fisher, Arc Raiders, Repo, Pragmata, Mugenics, Stray, Easy Delivery Co., Balatro, Another Crab's Treasure, Stellar Blade, The Mortuary Assistant, Mouthwashing, Hi-Fi Rush, and Pizza Tower, just to name a few recent bangers that don't come from any IPs. If you genuinely feel this way, it is up to you to find these games. Practice what you preach and search for these games and play them and support the devs that make them. Hardstep asks, what do you think of social media's impact on people's perception of reality? Social media has hands down got to be one of the worst inventions for mental health of all time, second maybe only to porn. It's completely warped people's sense of reality to the point where people are actively shutting themselves in, or, in worst cases, doing meth and smashing their bones in with hammers. The best thing you can do right now for your mental state is delete all social media you do not need. Obviously I have YouTube, you're watching this, and I also use Discord. I cannot stress how unimportant social media is in the grand scheme of things. Disassociate from it while you can, and if you're already addicted, try and wean yourself off it. It's a lot harder than you'd think if you're already addicted. Addiction takes time to get over. If you are going to do that, remember that relapses happen, and to not feel too bad about it. Like, if you just shame yourself, you're not going to get out of this rut. Forgive yourself and remember that these kind of things take time. So be easy on yourself, but still try and get it done. It feels like humans weren't supposed to see this many people, and they were definitely not supposed to argue this much. It's just fucking miserable out there. A lot of different comments have been asking why a Peregrine. In the starting days of Overwatch I made Farah, so I was looking for a cool bird-themed name to go with a Raptora armour, and like general sky-based aesthetic, and I came across the Peregrine Falcon, which is the fastest animal on Earth, reaching over 240 miles per hour. I thought this was cool and epic, so I went with it to represent how I swoop down and barrage these motherfuckers. And at college, in like the next few days, I got assigned an animal to make a presentation about, and lo and behold, I got given the Peregrine Falcon. So I thought, yeah, I better not fuck with this username because it seems to be ordained by a higher power. And here I am, still stuck with my cool name, even though I gave up on trying to be cool like 5 years ago now. I'll still see if I have some of my old Peregrine branding, because it was a lot cooler than this. I made the swap from cool to goofy a while back to better fit my personality, because I'm not a cool guy and the content I make is definitely not cool, which is relevant to the next question. That one agent asks, why did you open this channel? Well, video making is a hobby of mine and you need to put them somewhere or they just sit on your PC. It was originally just a channel for me to upload memes, but one day I made that Baptiste video when Overwatch was resurrecting, and the rest is history. It just popped off. Jacob Ellis asks, what do you think is the game with the best story? This is a hard thing to call because my favourite games have some incredible stories, all for different reasons. The most immersive world I've ever experienced is that of Cyberpunk 2077, which is probably my all-time favourite game. However, the story itself isn't all that impressive. There's some decent story beats and some interesting kind of philosophy to discuss about it, but it's not over-the-top incredible. In terms of having an incredibly concise and contained story, I think Expedition 33 is definitely up there. But overall, in comparison to everything with good stories, good characters, two of the best villains in the entirety of media, I think Metal Gear Rising is probably the best written story campaign mode I've ever played. The way in which the game balances campy humour, real-life horror stories, and uncomfortable truths is unmatched. I haven't played a game that's managed to weave all of these things together, and managing to not have one, but like I said, two top 5 villains of all time in the game, with those being Senator Armstrong and Jetstream Sam, obviously. Anyone interested in playing a game with an incredible story and an interest in global politics and human nature should be playing Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Ornery asks, when Batman video? You will get the Batman video when I need a hit in revenue or when views are down. I don't want to poke the hornet's nest when my channel is seeing unusual levels of growth. My hatred for Batman needs to be contained and will be revealed at a point where I can afford to lose a few hundred subscribers. Morgan Sharp asks, do you wish Manchester and other UK cities got more representation in gaming? I love Manchester and I'm tired of London slop. I absolutely agree. It's so unbelievably strange seeing the world's most influential and probably the most important country be boiled down to its worst city, and I want to see the North represented more. To explain things a little easier for confused Americans, the UK, specifically England, has an incredibly intense North and South divide, in which the South gets all the attention and resources while the North is left out to dry. It's not as bad as how England treated Ireland, but it's pretty fucking dire and is a relatively similar situation. Just recently, a high-speed rail project that could have brought billions to the North's economy and hundreds of jobs has been cancelled, because it was sabotaged by the London elites. By no means is Manchester perfect, but there's a certain amount of brotherly love that this city produces, and writers for games, TV and movies completely ignore the potential of things like our Chinatown, gay village, and our heavy past in the Industrial Revolution. Anton Geiger asks, "Hey Mr. PP, what are your top 5 games of all time, and why those?" This is a tough list, because it ultimately depends on if you mean games or franchises. As far as actual games go, my top 5 would be Cyberpunk 2077, Expedition 33, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, Neon White and Minecraft, but if we're talking franchises over specific games, Pokemon will always be number 1. It's just that none of the games in particular have hit the top 5. As mentioned earlier, 2077 has the most truly lived-in world of any game ever developed. No other game has made me enter flow state or feel like I'm genuinely there as much as I did in Cyberpunk. The world is insanely interesting and well built, with as many mysteries as one can fit into a game without fucking up the entire story. I'd actually never heard of it until it came out, so I bought it and played it on the day 1 patch and still had a great time because I wasn't expecting too much from it. I managed to avoid the majority of the bugs, and I don't know how, but then in 2025 I rebooted the game and played through it a second time with all the fixes and had the greatest gaming experience of all time. I think I clocked like 70 hours on that save file, and it was incredible. Expedition 33 has everything that I really want from a game, an in-depth turn-based combat system, which is something I crave as a lifelong Pokemon fan. The score is incredible, the art direction is amazing, the enemy designs are impeccable, the story is incredibly intense and mysterious, and gets much better once the shit really hits the fan. In terms of style and gameplay and music, Neon White is probably number 1 in those things, in those spaces. Like this is a game that should be considered the highest tier of gaming in my opinion. This being combined with the fast-paced puzzle environment and built-in speedrunning tech made this an incredible game to play, and all of this is combined with a silly romp with a story that it's pretty two-dimensional, like the characters are nothing special, but they still know how to tug at your heartstrings just right to make you feel for these characters and makes you question who really does deserve to get into heaven. And Minecraft is Minecraft. Godnoodle asks, "Why is your in-game name Girthlord? What's the lore behind it?" This is a rough confession, but the IGN Girthlord was a spur-of-the-moment stolen username from a live stream. If it wasn't clear from the multiple hints I've sprinkled in the videos before, I'm a massive fan of HoloLive EN, in particular Gigi Marin and Cecilia Immergreen. CC got a friend request from someone with the IGN Girth Demon, which made me laugh, so I stole it but edited it slightly so no one would get the reference, because I didn't want anyone to find out that I watch VTubers. So I edited it slightly, but that's no longer necessary as it's public information.
I'm about to play.
I just got a friend request. The username was Girth Demon.
Girth Demon? That's a good name. Look what you've done, guys.
Someone, that's the username, I'm not calling them a nobody, but they're asking, what's my stance on trans rights? I have a very normal stance on trans rights, that trans people are people who deserve respect, and I've read enough to grasp the differences between sex and gender, and everything about it adds up in my head, like it makes sense. I would say I have a pretty complete understanding of things like FTM, MTF, and like gender-neutral transgenders, but my knowledge is definitely lacking on the concept of other genders. I can never seem to quite comprehend it properly, and in my mind that doesn't really matter, because if they're not hurting anyone by exploring themselves, why would I care? And if anything, I'd probably encourage it. Knowing yourself in and out is an incredibly important thing when it comes to self-actualization, and being different is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Do I fully understand what it's like to be transgender? No, I don't, and I never will. But it's basic courtesy to respect someone's wishes around their own personal identity. It only seems like basic logic and courtesy to respect someone's gender in the same way you would respect someone changing their name or shortening it. This obsession with misgendering transgender people because it's their birth sex is strange to me, because these same people will go down to the pub and call their mate Christopher Chris. It's wildly illogical that they're not calling him Christopher because that's his real birth name. So that's okay, but a change in pronouns isn't. I don't get it. But then again, bigotry is rarely logic based, is it? Akamaru asks, do you have a favourite sports team? I did. I used to follow the Manchester Phoenix until they went bankrupt. I know that the Manchester Storm rebrand was purchased and revived, but it just isn't the same without Tony Hand. I'm currently supporting the Montreal Canadiens and their playoff run. Oh god, this script is old. Oh, Shit. Well, good luck to the Hurricanes, I suppose. Grimmy with Guns asks, do you think that some people are inferior beings because of their actions or choices, like being a paedophile murderer or maining Sierra or Moira? I don't really believe in the concept of an inferior being, so to speak, because the being part implies something about their genetics rather than their personality. But I get that it's kind of a shitpost question. All humans are equal in my head, but those who make bad choices should be punished. But, like, bad humans are still humans at the end of the day, so it's not like we can breed those genes out. That's not possible. Especially if we're going to start dehumanizing people, we shouldn't be dehumanizing things like murder, since murder isn't as remotely as black or white as people like to claim it is, especially in comparison to something like paedophilia. Like, when we're looking at something like murder, we can't pretend that Luigi Mangione murdering a healthcare CEO is exactly the same as the Doctor Who YouTuber who murdered his pregnant girlfriend. That's not the same thing, and we can't pretend that it is. But I think overall I'd still believe that the base of humanity will always be good, but sometimes people stray from the path of good, and that doesn't inherently make them inferior, just bad. Super Adriano asks, do you have any favourite books or any you would like to recommend? I'm not big on reading, as I have a shit attention span. I will forever advise anyone to read To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Danny the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl, and the Berserk series by Michael Grant. To Kill a Mockingbird is a spectacular way to inform white children of the effects of racism. Although it isn't exactly a happy book, it ends with a message of hope for a brighter future. Plus, Atticus Finch is what I believe all men should strive to be. Danny the Champion of the World is another big part of why I am who I am today. The story is of a poor little boy and his father living in a shack getting revenge against the wealthy man in their area for ruining the town. It's an exploration of poverty, the human spirit, and what it means to be a father. And the Berserk series is very different. It's just an interesting conspiracy thriller about controllable nanobots that can like fully rewire people's brains, causing worldwide insanity with some genuinely insane plot twists. Berserk probably more for teen readers, but the other two read at any age. I feel like those are really important stories to have in the back of your mind somewhere. Ross Russ asks, what's the thing you want Overwatch lore to answer the most? As a whole, I'm not interested in the whole grand conspiracy aspect of it all, but my main question is about the magic aspect of the game. Why do the Shimada clan have the ability to manifest literal Shinto yokai? Does that mean Shintoism is the true religion of Overwatch? Also, what is the Iris? How did Aurora gain sentience? What about her in particular made her alive? But the more important question is, how did Volskaya Industries, Zarya and Lynx 17 track Sombra so easily and reveal her name as Olivia Colomar? In the Searching comic, Sombra is supposed to be the world's greatest hacker and spy, so why did Volskaya Industries, a C-tier unimportant corporation, uncover her but was not uncovered by Overwatch or the conspiracy? I mean, obviously the simple answer is lazy writing, but there might be a genuine reason for it. And the final question for this video is from Cheeseman, who asks, when did you realise it's always been a class war where they tried to distract us with bullshit? I think I was either 22 or 23 when I'd been a liberal and a chuddy rightoid, like at different points in my life, and it finally clicked in my head after finding purpose in life and being able to think for myself for the first time that the world was nothing like what I'd been told on the internet. Everyone was a lot nicer than I'd been led to believe. The more I looked into things, and the more it started to make sense. Why exactly did the internet want me to feel trapped and radicalized? Why does the internet want other people to hate me for no reason? From my own lived experience, straight white people aren't evil, and I've met enough people from all other races and all other letter of the alphabet mafia to know that they're not evil either. So I started pondering who benefits from all these distractions, and the answer was obvious. A divided army is a lot easier to control, so I looked for whose evils went unpunished, and that's where I found the only people who get away with everything, the ultra-wealthy. And it's not just any particular group, mind you. The ultra-wealthy has people from every race, religion, and identity, which leads to the logical conclusion that there is only one true divide between humans, that being class, and everything else are minor differences that are amplified by said elites to sow artificial division, with the greatest example of this being Gamergate, which was a stupid argument about ethics in gaming journalism that became a giant culture war topic due to paid agitators that recruited white men to the far right, when in reality this was a complete non-issue and people should have simply agreed to disagree and move on. And with that, I'm going to close this video. Again, thank you for 2k. Obviously, voice changed a bit, doing a re-record because my mic was playing up. But thank you for everything, and I'll see you next time. As I'm contractually obliged to do, I'm going to thank my eggs. Cameron Wilson Fan, Cherry Balls, God Noodle, Lord Gracos, Persistent, Despair, Brian, Zoe, Freya, Gothic Dino, and Slate Rex. Thank you for your continued support.